Welcome to what is a first for the foundation years, a live Ustream broadcast on seeking the views of childminders on the new 30 hours offer of childcare. For those of you who do not know who I am, my name is Sue Robb and I'm the Head of Early Years at the Children and Families Charity For Children. For Children is the Department for Education's strategic partner for early years and childcare, and in that role we do lots of different communication activities, including the Foundation Years website, newsletters and events. And as I say, this is a first for us in that we're doing a Ustream broadcast, and we'll be really interested in your feedback to find out how useful tonight's session is or not, and if you would like more of these sorts of communications. Firstly, I would like to thank you for engaging with this session tonight by sending through a variety of interesting questions about 30 hours childcare. Now, we're going to do our best to answer as many of these questions as possible, and we're getting them coming through by the minute here, so we've got lots of questions to answer. But what you also need to know is that this session is part of a series of events that have been held over the autumn and are very much focused on how the sector can help the DFE in their thinking about how the 30 hours will look like for children and how we as a sector can work in partnership. Now, as I say, the focus for this evening is to engage with childminders. At a number of the events we've had over the summer, we recognise it's been hard for childminders to attend, and that's why we're doing this session tonight. Now, before we start the questions, we've got a few domestics that we just want you to be aware of. Now, after tonight, this broadcast will be available on the Department for Education's YouTube and also on the foundationyears.org website. Also on that website, there will be a presentation of the latest information from the Department for Education on the 30 hours. And in the next week or so, we'll be putting up a question and answer sheet and a myth-busting sheet on the 30 hours. So a lot happening, a lot to look out for. But what this session is all about tonight, the questions. And with me tonight from the Department for Education are Julie.
Hi, I'm Julie Laughton and I work in the Early Years Entitlement team.
Hello, I'm Alison, Britton, and I work on the Early Years Foundation Stage team.
Okay, so I don't think you're going to be surprised to know that the first question is on funding. We've had many questions on funding across the country, and it's a real concern. Julie, can you tell us where we are on funding?
Well, Sue, I've been out with you talking directly to providers myself, and I know that there is real concern about the funding rate for the free entitlement. I'm pleased to say that the Prime Minister has already committed to increasing the average rate to providers, and that includes childminders.
Right, good.
And to get this right, the government launched a review before the summer into the cost of providing childcare, and the aim of that is to establish a funding rate that is both fair and sustainable for providers, but that also provides good value for the taxpayer. Now, we received over 2,000 responses to a call for evidence as part of the review, and we're now working with a team at Deloitte to analyse those responses and all that information, very rich information that we've actually had from the sector, for which we're very grateful. Now, I know that childminders would love me tonight to be able to tell them what the rate is going to be. I know that. I'm afraid I'm just not in a position to do it. The findings from the review will feed into a much broader cross-government spending review, in fact about all government funding, and that will happen on the 25th of November. Now, I would expect that more detail about the funding for early years and for 30 hours will come very soon after that. So I'm sorry I'm not able to say more tonight, but I can assure people that there's more detail on its way very soon.
Okay, right. So we understand we can't delve into the funding at this point in time then, Julie. However, what I think would be really interested for childminders to know is how, if they were involved in this consultation, did we get a response from childminders?
absolutely. We had a fantastic response to the call for evidence from Childminders, and I think I'm right in saying that about 40% of the responses, in fact, came from Childminders, so really representative. We also held a number of roundtables over the summer so that we could have a bit more face-to-face contact with providers to understand their issues. And I'm grateful to Pacey, who supported us to hold a roundtable specifically for Childminders in October. Now, Sue, you and I have worked together a long time, and you know that I want to hear from providers. I think it's really important that Childminders this evening take the opportunity to actually tell us about the issues, and I'm really looking forward to tonight's session and to hearing from them.
Great. Well, you can hear that we've got a real plea there from the Department for Education for Childminders to get in touch with the department with the challenges, their concerns, their successes, and we ask you to do that by dropping an email to foundationyears.org, and we'll take that forward with the department.
Brilliant.
And the next question that comes in is quite a simple question in some ways and probably a very complicated question in other ways. Why 30 hours childcare? Why are we going down this route, Julie?
Well, we know that for many families with young children, childcare is not just an issue, it is the issue. Many parents want to go back to work, they want to work more hours and find that the costs of childcare are just unaffordable. The commitment to rolling out 30 hours of free childcare will help these parents and will help that affordability challenge. Now, of course, what's also important is that childcare enables children to be happy, to be safe, to thrive, and so obviously quality is also very, very important.
Yeah, well, that's good to hear that the quality is still central and got to be central to this agenda as well. And there's another burning question coming through, and again, it's quite a basic one. Which parents are eligible for this offer? Alison, have you got thoughts on that?
So let me just say a few words about which parents will be eligible, because I know there's been a lot of discussion about this. So eligibility for the new 30 hours offer will be those households where both parents are working, and when we say working we mean 8 hours or more a week on national minimum wage, and in those families where there's a lone parent, where that one parent is working. It also includes families where one or both parents is on maternity or paternity leave or adoption leave or on statutory sick pay. And also it includes family where one parent is employed and the other parent has caring responsibilities or is disabled.
Okay, thank you. Well, that's very clear, Alison. Thank you for that. Now, the questions are coming through thick and fast. A number are coming through on some funding bits, and I'd just like to leave those and come back to that at the end of this session tonight, okay? Because what else is coming through, and I think this is very important, is that a number of listeners are also asking how you see the role of childminders in delivering the 30 hours and how they can get involved and what support they would have in becoming involved. Julie, can you pick up on that for us?
Well, the first thing to say is that childminders are a vital part of the childcare market. They, in fact, there are more childminders than any other type of provider. I think it's over 50,000 actually.
So, yeah.
And what's so important about childminders is that many of them are able to offer parents much greater flexibility, offering hours to support different types of working patterns or wraparound care, picking children up from school, nursery. And for me, I think it's that flexibility and that ability to work in partnership with other providers that is actually going to be critical to the rollout of 30 hours.
Okay, because what I've picked up from the events that you were doing over the summer with parents is that parents want this offer to be a stretched offer as well. It's not like a 9 to 3 offer, because very few of us work at 9 o'clock to 3 o'clock.
Indeed.
So I can see flexibility is going to be key in successful delivery. So what's been happening, particularly for childminders, around that flexibility to allow them to be more flexible in what they're doing?
So one of the things that we've done from this January, childminders will be able to work for up to half their time from non-domestic premises. So this is a bit different from the trips and outings that we know childminders take the children that they care for on, but they'll actually be able to be based from and working from non-domestic premises such as schools, and we think this will really give childminders more opportunities to expand their businesses and to provide a really flexible offer for parents. So for example, some childminders might get together on a school and run an after school club, or perhaps use the school premises during the holidays and run a holiday club. And we'd be really interested to hear from childminders who are thinking about working in this new kind of way and supplementing the home-based care that we know parents really value with a different type of care as well.
Okay, right, thank you for that, because it's interesting. We've had a question from a childminder who lives in Devon, I believe in quite a rural area of Devon from my geographical knowledge, and this childminder is supporting her local school in offering wraparound care, and she's asking if the new 30 hours will allow and facilitate more partnership working, with schools and other organisations as well. Julie, have you got any thoughts on that?
Well, I think the answer is definitely. If we are going to deliver 30 hours and roll this policy out for working parents, we're going to have to think innovatively about the offer for parents. Frankly, no one size fits all. Not all working parents have the same working hours. They don't all want the same type of childcare, and so parental choice is going to be really, really important. And the issues for parents around a blended, seamless offer that fits around their working needs, I think is a big challenge for us as a sector to work through. Now, I know, just like this childminder in Devon, that there are childminders all over the country that are already working in partnership with other providers, schools or others, to offer something really blended for parents. And I really would be interested to hear where that's working well and where we can learn from that in terms of informing our policy development at this stage. Be very interested.
I think that's really good to hear, Julie, and certainly I know that we've picked up through the foundation years a number of areas. I'm thinking of Children's Centre Nursery School in Newham, actually, here in London, who are working very closely with their childminders in giving, as you say, that blended offer which parents are looking for, and they've been doing quite a lot of sort of data research into the offer they're providing, and what they're also picking up is improved outcomes for children as well, as being measured by their monitoring of children's progress, and that is really, for me, that's a really good news story actually. It's impacting on children, it's supporting families and everybody working together. So it's great to hear that the DFE want to hear of more examples. So again, send them in, bombard the DFE with all that. And
please do, because we are genuinely, I think, in listening mode. And I think I want to hear from people on the ground who are actually delivering this, about the implementation and how best we can give a really good experience for children and support families in making that offer work for them. So any examples we'd be really grateful for.
Okay. Now, the messages about the 30 hours are definitely getting out there, because we've got a question from Sarah in Oxford, and Sarah has actually accessed the information on being an early implementer for the offer. Now, I suspect a number of the people listening tonight are thinking, what's Sue talking about? What's early implementation? What's all this about? So can we just take a few minutes to think, to discuss what is the early implementers? Is there a role for childminders? And if there is a role for childminders, how they can get involved?
So basically we want to try out the 30 hours policy first in a few early implementer areas before we roll it out across the whole country. And this is really important because we want to learn from the experience of the early implementers and how they are making it work in their areas. We're really keen for childminders to get involved, and we've invited expressions of interest from local authorities and providers, and we've had lots of interest already from local authorities who are going to lead the early implementation in their areas. So if any childminders out there are interested in getting involved in the early implementer areas, then talk to their local authority and see if you can get involved, see if your authority has registered an interest already with us.
Okay, and if the local authority has not registered an interest, then that does mean that the childminder in that local authority cannot get involved. However, what we're also picking up is that a number of our listeners want to be involved when this starts being rolled up in September 17. So, very soon really in reality. So how can they do that?
Well, certainly get in touch with the local authority anyway, because even if they're not in an early implementer area, they will be thinking about how they're going to offer the 30 hours free entitlement to all children who are eligible from September 2017.
And I think we will be looking at particularly these issues around flexibility and partnership that we spoke about at the beginning, and where we can gather examples of good practice. We do want to bring providers together to help us think through the policy. So that's another way I think that childminders can get involved and influence what's happening from the beginning, really.
Great. So really that's a real sort of ask of childminders. If you're interested, don't wait for the local authority to contact you. You contact the local authority. Okay. Now the questions are coming through thick and fast here. Quite a few of them are coming back to funding.
Of course, yeah.
And we knew that would be the case. So Simona is asking, what guarantee is there that local authorities will pass on the full rates to childminders?
Okay, well, we're looking at payment, we're looking at all sorts of issues about payment, and I understand that some of the questions that came in before the session started were also around issues about frequency of payments, late payments. We know that these things are a real issue.
If I can just stop you there, Julie, because Lindsay's asked, what about late payments as well?
Okay, so
and another question is, how can you actually expect childminders to get involved in this when they are experiencing late payments up to only getting paid 2 or 3 times a year? It's just not sustainable for them. So this seems to be like the burning question out there, really.
And I know from the call for evidence and from my own conversations with childminders that issues about payments cause real problems for childminder sustainability, and I know that some local authorities, I'm thinking, Sue, when we were in London, there at least, we went to at our consultation event, there were at least 1 or 2 local authorities who had already recognised this as an issue, and they were already moving to monthly payments. So we know that this is not happening everywhere, and that some local authorities are already addressing it and recognising it as an issue. At the moment, currently, the central government does not tell local authorities how to manage payment schedules. We don't prescribe frequency. We don't say how many times they have to pay or anything like that. And it is local authorities who determine the funding and how it is passported out to providers. Now, you'll remember before the childcare bill came into Parliament,
that was in October.
In October, that's right. We published a policy statement about our intention around 30 hours. And one of the things that we actually included in there was a commitment to looking at how we can support local authorities to draw up better contractual funding agreements between themselves and childcare providers. And again, of course, that would include childminders. Now, I know that there is thinking happening at the moment in our teams about that very issue, I think what we need to do is take some of these concerns that people have highlighted this evening and just feed that into the process, because clearly issues around prompt payments in particular, it sounds, is causing some concern for people. So I think it's very helpful to hear that.
Definitely prompt payments, and also some sort of guarantee, in the words of one of the childminders coming in, about the true true costs being passported out and not being top-sliced for other local authority activities.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, I think we need to wait for the outcome of the funding review before we can address that particular issue about how funding will be structured. But certainly we can take some of these other concerns about payments and that relationship with the local authority. I think that's very helpful to have those highlighted again this evening. So thank you.
Okay. So another question coming in is a question that's asking, would a 48 weeks offer be better? So when we're thinking, of a stretched offer, 48 weeks, and I appreciate you will not be able to comment on that because the model is not there yet, and we've got to wait for that. But there's a childminder thinking just 48 weeks could be a better offer for parents.
Well, firstly, we know that there are lots of providers who already offer stretched offer beyond term time, and I know that there are lots of childminders doing exactly that. So the current system does allow for stretching of the offer, and I think we need to think about that again as we're further developing the policy. So I don't really have a particular answer on that. I think we've got to think about parental choice. Goes back to what I said earlier about not one size fits all. We need to think about offering parents a range of options to support their own working patterns and their own circumstances.
Okay. Another question that's coming from Penny is slightly funded related, but I think it's even wider than that, and it's certainly a question that came up at a number of the consultation events, is the tension between 2-year-olds and 3-year-olds. A number of childminders take 2-year-olds, and obviously they get a higher rate for 2-year-olds. And so this question is, if the 3-year-old rate drops and parents move into work, childminders' incomes will drop because they will be taking the 3-year-old instead of the 2-year-old. And Penny is asking, is that fair, really?
Well,
and you cannot really comment on that.
Yeah, I can't really. I mean, this is part of the scope of the funding review to consider exactly how the different free entitlements will be funded. And I think I just don't have anything that I can say concretely about that at the moment. I'm sorry.
Same. So what in some ways is very satisfying, I think, is that the same questions, the same tensions expressed by the sector are being replicated this evening.
Yes.
So I think what you're hearing as a department is a real commonality of those issues, and one that's not come up tonight, but again linked with that, bit of interest to childminders is the 2-year-old offer at risk because of the extended 3- and 4-year-old offer. So that again has been fed into the DFE at a number of consultation events across the country. Another observation that's come in from another childminder, I've not got a name on this question, is that childminders absolutely are ideally placed to look after 2-year-olds and are doing that already. And they're actually suggesting that there is a family offer so that a whole family could be looked after by a childminder.
Very interesting.
That is
very interesting,
isn't it? And again, that's something that we feed in that you might want to think about.
It's very, very interesting, and the idea of siblings being looked after together, and it's very interesting.
Okay. Now, have we got any more questions coming in? No more questions at this moment in time. So anything else that you would like to say?
I'd just like to thank everybody for engaging so constructively in tonight's session. This is a first for us too. Alison and I have never done this before, and I really do hope it's been helpful. We'd like to hear if it's worked for you, and if you would like more of these sorts of sessions, as Sue said earlier. So please do let us know. Please do keep sending in via Sue's website website, the examples of good practice, your thoughts about how we can be innovative, how we can offer more flexibility for parents, and how we can work in partnership in particular. I really think childminders are critical to the success of 30 hours delivery, and I'm grateful to have had the chance to engage directly with you.
Okay, well that's really great to hear that, Julie, Alison, thank you. So you've really heard this evening that the DFE want to hear from you. We cannot say that often enough, so please do keep in touch. Please do keep your queries, your challenges, your questions coming through. And personally, I think it would be really good if we could come back and revisit this after the funding review is published in December, early December, November time that you mentioned about, and then really be able to address these funding questions that have been asked tonight and quite justifiably asked.
Yeah, of course.
And we can give these answers. So I think that's really important that we maybe consider doing this again. So thank you, Alison and Julie, for your time this evening.
Thank you, Sue. Thank you.
For all the childminders who have participated. As I say, you can watch this again if you so wish to do so on YouTube at the Department for Education. It will be on the foundation years. There is this really good presentation up there from the DFE, which probably answers some more of the questions about the challenge of the places to be found, and really reiterates that essentiality, if that's such a word, of involving childminders in the rollout of the 30 hours. So thank you for that, and goodbye.